Welcome to God's Favorite. Today we have Zoe Lumiere, who is an amazing life coach, healing coach, has a business, has an influencer dog who we love named Phoenix, and she's just an incredible person, and she is our God's Favorite today. And do you want to introduce yourself a little bit and
Oh,
what
I
you
think
do?
you did such a lovely job. This is not the first time that I get the privilege of sharing space with Liz. So uh just happy to be here. And
I am so excited to have you here. I just kept wanting to have you on here because I've worked with you as a life coach before myself in the past, manifesting. Like, I've always looked at you as, and I remember one of the first times I met you too, and just always having this, and it's like a knowing and authority and an innate joy that you have. And I work a lot with people with spiritual gifts, and that gift of that joy, like that innate kind of um what's the word, positivity. I can't even think of it. It doesn't come natural to me, obviously. Like, I just remember seeing that and seeing the first kind of moments I met you in a workshop. And I saw you like grow and build and keep building. And I just always looked up to you in a way I think is what is really coming forward as this leader, as this one that can help others. The seeds that helped me grow in so many ways, like the seeds of you holding that energy, but also like my process of when I felt, you know, others are God's favorite, others are the chosen ones, and healing that. I don't know, it's just all such a miracle every time that I think of you. Yeah, you started this coaching practice called Allowing Love. Do you want to talk a little bit about your journey with that? And
so, it is often to talk about how things happen, because I think we can all relate to that things aren't as linear or black and white as perhaps we'd like to make them seem, right? It's like there are often so many things that contribute to things birthing or changing. So in the realm of that, knowing that there are probably so many other things going on, but it was my eating disorder that I had since I was 14. My mum passed when I was 14 years old, and after a long, really brutal battle with ovarian cancer. So it was a little before she passed that I did start using food as my source of love, safety. It was my escape, it was my coping mechanism. And I overate and then learnt to throw that up. And I did that for 20 years. And looking back on it, it just feels like a parallel life. But it was just the core way that I dealt with my mum's passing. There was so much energy that came up for me, and I did not have the skills. I did not have the love and support around me. So I created this beautiful friend called bulimia. And it's so wild to be where I am today, because I really do feel like it was that. Like, I wouldn't wish it on anyone, and it really actually has caused a little bit of havoc for my health that I'm still ironing out. But it really did support me in ways that I did need, that I didn't have in other ways. So even though I had worked through so much of my stuff since my mother passing when I was 14, like through to then about 20 years later when I was still bulimic. And I'm sure everyone around my life at that time would have gone, there's no way Zoe has an eating disorder, right? She's working for her spiritual teacher. She's traveling the world. She looks great. She looks like she's really got her shit together. And for all intents and purposes, I really did relate to that. And I had this deep, dark secret that I felt a lot of shame about. And that for whatever reason, I do believe that I feel like all other parts of my life got really shiny and really great. And I started to become so afraid that I would lose it all, that for whatever reason, my bulimia just started to spiral out of control, because it's not like I threw up every day. You know, maybe it was every other day, or I would go, it was cyclical. But all of a sudden, and this was, I think, around the time I was 32, 33, I'm 46 right now. I just started to overeat. Like, it was just out of control. And so I was like, I'm going to either check myself into rehab, or I really had this sense that I need to actually address my childhood. So I started this very beautiful journey of learning how to feel my feelings alongside the spiritual context that I was living in. And that just gave birth to this whole way to clean and clear negativity, of truly like clear my challenges. And so that really started me on this journey of what I would call, I don't know, emotional healing, spiritual healing, like embodied healing. And really, in terms of a scientific context, it's really just somatic healing. It's learning how to get in the body and really being aware of how we feel and where we're storing repressed emotion. So as I started to do this for myself, within 3 months of starting to do this kind of work, I let go of bulimia entirely. And I sometimes don't like to say that as black and white as it was, because as I say, I'm sure there were so many other things that I did along the way that helped contribute to that. But the truth is that about 3 months after I started to really just be aware of, oh, I'm sad, like I can really start to cry and give that a voice. And very quickly, what would come present was this little Zoe, this 12-year-old, this 14-year-old, this 18-year-old, this 4-year-old, these little Zoes that would come present in my consciousness. And so I would just let her cry. I would do all of these beautiful things with her. I would learn how to receive her, let her feel. And I began to have this experience that we have these negative feelings so that we might be expanded into that huge God, that huge love, that healer, that oneness, that if we ever see a child in pain, like, there is no manual for being a mum, right? It's just like you see a child on the floor in pain. It's like it's so easy just to scoop them up and love them. And so I began this beautiful journey of really kind of for myself, wow, how does that happen, right? So that's allowing love for me. How do we allow our humanity, our fears, our feelings, the pain, the fucking very real challenges of being human, but how do we allow them so fully that it does activate us into that compassion and into who we really are, that beautiful, big, invisible, loving, that hug that holds our human, that loves our human, that heals our human. That's who we really are, right? I'm sure all of your listeners have a great experience that they're not really, they're human, but we have been given a human to love and heal and just profoundly take care of. So that's allowing love in it, because it was wild that for whatever reason the dovetail come for me with my eating disorder was I was addicted to men that didn't love me. Like, I had this unrequited love problem my entire life. I actually never had a boyfriend until like the next year after I started to do this. But just really learning how to release the pain and the this experience of I'm not lovable, I'm not worthy of love. Like, my mum left me, I must not be worthy of hanging around for. As I started to give her the love that she needed, all those misbeliefs of a lack of worthiness started to truly be cleared from my body and from my consciousness. And that definitely did dovetail with and I'm worthy of love. So I'm going to stop falling in love with men that are never going to fucking love me back. But my 5-step allowing love process of what I call spiritual manifestation.
You have such a consciousness of loving, in my perspective, that I think everybody has, but they're not quite aware of all the time. And helping people tap into that and clear away that space, helped people gain their authority in that divinity. But also, I think that something I've experienced a lot with people that's coming forward is that if somebody starts stepping into that, people can kind of get threatened by that. And I feel like you have this coaching that gives that awareness, that consciousness, that neutrality to people where you can see all those different levels. And I just think that's such a beautiful gift to the world. Along the lines of the eating disorder, I too had an eating disorder and I wasn't aware of it for a long time and my whole life pretty much. And then one day it just kind of hit. And it was like, oh my God, I had this huge awareness that it was like there. And it wasn't like it wasn't bulimia, it wasn't anorexia, it wasn't anything like it was like I was unconsciously just like eating, 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 eating. And I was like, how? And my whole entire world was obsessed with food. And there was nothing I was enjoying in life. I can relate with that also, like the men patterns that come forward that are so unique to each one of us, but also everyone can relate with it. So we always think we're alone, and at the same time, it's like we're not.
And I love that the focus of your podcast is God's favorite. And I think, yeah, when we really start to have a very deep experience of how the same we all are, and we're just as broken as each other, and we're just as fucking amazing, like the Oprah, the Eckhart Tolle, whoever your spiritual teacher is, whoever you look up to, that is you. Like, you are that bright, that beautiful. And I've been in awe of watching you evolve and stand into, like, this is my inner spiritual authority. I'm living, and I'm trusting it, and more than trusting it and living it, like, it's now so full, it's fucking overflowing, and it is serving others. And so I just wanted to say thank you for the kind words in terms of how you see me, but that resonance that we share is just such a beautiful thing. But as you're awakening to your own greatness, it's very hard to not see that as a very clear, inevitable possibility for them, even if they can't see it yet. And so I will say, one of the things that I do to work with people is something that has nothing to do with what comes out of my mouth, but is such a function of how I just perceive or experience life and people and humans and adversity and trauma. And it is inevitable, for us to use it and grow through it and truly use it to unlock our spiritual gifts, to really awaken to the service, the light that we're on this planet to be. So I will say that working with a client, in my experience, is a lot often about that, just about like loving someone so much and being able to really be in their pain with them, because a lot of the clients that I work with are either like deep trauma, addiction, eating disorder, but a lot of grief, or just like I'm really overwhelmed with some big feelings, either grief or sadness or big challenge, big trauma. And so just having the courage to really be in that with them, in my experience, is profoundly healing. But to be able to be in that pain and that adversity, that challenge, in a way that does this beautiful, magical, paradoxical thing where it's like, yes, like I'm with you, that fucking sucks, like ouch. I can experience how fully your human is hurting, but at the same time, um, because I because I have loved my the pain, the trauma, the sexual abuse, the things that I've gone through in my life so much. Like for me, any adversity, and I don't ever say this to clients often out loud, right? But it's like, it's fucking just all gold, right? It's like, if you truly are willing, if it's your time to truly like start to pick up this area of your life, whatever, and you may have a really shitty childhood, or like even just like being bullied at school, or not being the favorite sibling, or like there is such a spectrum of, and we're none of us are loved the way that we really needed to be loved, because none of us were raised by robots, right? Like flawed people, we're just here to be flawed and to give each other opportunities to find our love from inside of ourselves, and our childhood does an incredible job at that. And you'd never see it in my face, because really when someone's hurting, they don't want to hear, at least initially, oh, this is so amazing, you're going to be able to pick up, this sexual abuse, and you're going to be able to love it and clear the, but to be able to both be in their human with them, but also just experience the truth that absolutely everything that we've been given in our life is here to grow us and expand us into who we are as God, as love, as whatever. Like that does something for someone's consciousness.
Yeah.
Whatever, like coping mechanism, whatever pattern is kind of what's available to be lifted and cleared, usually diving in on just like where the shit is hitting the fan, versus like traditional life coaching where we're just working with the conscious mind. Often we're doing all the things that we know to do. It's but when if we have the courage to really let ourselves fall apart and feel some of the emotions that we kind of don't want to show other people, that will give us a backdoor into those blind spots, those unconscious judgments that can be cleared if we have the courage to really feel them and awaken to what's at the heart of that.
Yeah. And I wanted to say, like, when I was talking about first meeting you, it was like in this very loving, heart-centered workshop. And now, and like the life that you have is so different now. Like I've watched you manifest so much and just watching it and observing it and seeing those triggers. Like, what is the trigger that I have with that? What is she getting that I'm not getting? And just, there were times when, I was watching you as I knew you would be like traveling and you would be like, and you were like getting married and like you were like, you let go of all this weight and you were just manifesting. And I was like, oh God, why can't I have those things? And I just want to say, like, what I learned is just that those that reflection was just perfect for me. And I think that like everybody is just such a reflection of what is triggered inside of us and a puzzle piece, and so important to like observe like what is coming forward, what am I viewing, like almost outside of myself, that is triggering that depth of how am I coming into myself through
Yep.
it. That is how we've learned to kind of move our ego selves out of the way,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and moving that part of ourselves out of the way and working with spirit and whatever we call that. I call it spirit, Holy Spirit. That's the only thing I can call it. But are moving ourselves out of the way and allowing
Yep.
something greater to come through that is of a loving, uplifting nature. Not better or worse. It just gives a different perspective to have do so much of that ego work that you're talking about. And in my work, I'm working with like multi-dimensional, like whatever I see into that so
Yep.
clearly. And I've noticed a lot of your work is, really feeling the emotions and the depth of that. And it's almost like they don't feel like they're allowed to talk about that one thing. And there's so much shame around, you know, these topics. Like, I
Yeah.
was molested, I had an eating disorder, or even crying and feeling emotional. And it can be such a blessing for people. Yeah, I just think it's such beautiful work that you work with people in that way, that it allow the feeling to come forward.
Well, I think one of the great misunderstandings that probably a lot of people have, but that's definitely almost like ingrained to a lot of like spiritual paradigms, um, is that somehow, we need to work to be better. Like we need to be more spiritual somehow. But in my experience, it's just the truth that we are this very flawed human being, right? That's designed to make mistakes. And like, we're just never going to perfect this. And maybe this was given to us perfectly. And at the very same time, like, we are such a spark of the Holy Spirit. We are so perfect. We are just so incredible. But that's really hard. It is, I do experience it really hard to kind of come to a place to really have these in a beautiful coexisting place. Like, well, if you're in a human form, you're going to be challenged. So, like, let go of the idea that you're ever going to wake up one morning and everything like, and you're just going to fucking fart rainbows and poop cupcakes. Like, it's just never, ever, ever going to happen. You're here to love this very flawed being. And the more, the more curious and more on that page of like, yeah, I get triggered. And if I really start to like let myself be aware of like, oh yeah, where is it? Because I can kind of like, I think we all get into the like trying to be spiritual, and we can kind of know that, oh, that this makes us jealous, or I'm kind of like judging that, or like I'm going, what the fuck with this, right? We can kind of all like push that down and like just feel like, oh, say nice airy fairy things, but inside of us we're kind of pushing down the fact that we're kind of like a bit triggered, like that we're kind of having, maybe if we were more allowing and embracing of our humanity, right? It's not a flaw in the design, that there is a little aspect of our humanity that feels judgy or feels jealous. Maybe we can get even closer to that part of us and give that part of us the love, perhaps the new experience that it needs, and continually grow in that process, evolve that. So we no longer actually have that jealous bone, right? But just by pushing it down and thinking, oh, I'm spiritual, that's actually just going to feed that part of us. It'll go more unconscious and it'll actually start to create more havoc in our life. So just being more like, having it be okay that, yeah, I get triggered sometimes. Like, I think we're particularly in spiritual circles where we get pretty good at going, oh no, I'm fine with all things. Like, it's like, well, actually, the more courage we have to go like, ouch, or I just want to hit that person, or whatever that is. Like, if we really learn to get closer to those aspects of us, and for me, the biggest keys are self-love, self-compassion, self-forgiveness. And there are so many tools and techniques, and there's such a rich adventure waiting for all of us in how it works best for us to truly have love, compassion, and forgive ourselves for anything that we've done or bought into, et cetera, et cetera. It's so fun because it's, we get to continually like find these beautiful little orphans inside, and we get to love them and mature them and truly like just clear negativity, clear aspects of our karma and trauma, so that we just keep on getting a greater ability to just live this Holy Spirit, this loving, this beauty that comes through, whilst yeah, putting our ego to the side, and then just whenever they're out of balance, it's like, great, like I'm ready for you, right? Like, what you got? Like,
And I completely agree. And I feel like this term is so judgmental, but I'm just going to use it like superficial spirituality. And there's
yeah,
just so much of that out there. I find that my work is more, it's not that frou-frou. You come in and, I'm just gonna make a portrait or I'm gonna sit with you and it's gonna be like something vague. It's like the meat, what are the triggers? A lot of people don't understand that or don't know yet that pulls those triggers in ourselves can pull us into these patterns that are like so ancient and so powerful. Even like our little reactions to things, like whether it's driving, which is hard for everyone, I'll say, or like, getting upset on the road, or a little annoyance, like you were talking about with our boyfriend or partner or whatever it is, or like those, when I look at those spiritually and how I've worked at them and myself, they're
yeah,
related to such like, then there's another level of them. Like, oh, I was really angry at my mom for doing this or that, or, and then, going even deeper into the multi dimensions of it, there's just, past lives and rage held from those. And it's just that little trigger can bring us into those deep, deep experiences. And that's
yeah.
where I like to work. Like
Yeah.
that's where I'd like to work. I like the intense experiences, and those really deep ones that have brought up me crying and releasing. I'm always searching for that, but I also had to find a point where I was like, where is I've had that experience of crying and the emotional levels and all of that. And where's the lighter? Like, where's the, now it's just time to have fun. And I feel like I'm in that period in my life. Like,
Nice.
I'm enjoying my life. I'm along for the ride. I'm surrendering to the universe, and really allowing myself to enjoy and let in what is for my highest good. And if it's not, just let myself have that enjoyment. So Zoe's traveled the world, and had with a lot with spiritual people, and she has had a lot of those types of experiences with spiritual teachers and being involved in spiritual worlds and working for people like that. And I'm just curious if you can maybe share an experience you've had doing that.
A great question. So I have had the profound honor of being able to work with, for, and travel with my spiritual teacher. He's passed now, which is actually, probably a very pertinent part of this. It is just such a gift, if you're called to truly spend time, right, in the field of a spiritual teacher. There is just something that goes on that really helps us uh, start to expand into some of these experiences in a way that I can't put any words on, and so I'm not even gonna try. Of miracles, like just unexplainable, truly unexplainable stuff. A lot of what I would do would be like driving around, picking up stuff. Like living in Los Angeles, you're driving all the time. And I would drive like an absolute idiot. I would be texting at the same time. I would be researching on Google on my phone at the same time. Stupid, because I was just so, I was starting to really awaken into allowing the Holy Spirit to live through me. But I was also very much in my ego all those years, right? Like, really wanting to prove to my spiritual teacher how amazing and how impressive, and look at how much I can get done, and look at how competent I am, and really just wanting to be valuable. So I got to continue to hang around. One night I was in the living room, and he turns to me and he says, "Enough. That's the last time I save you while you're driving." And he had never mentioned anything like this to me before, but it basically was like you stop driving like an idiot, basically. But he wanted to let me know that, that he had intervened multiple times, and I could even in that moment kind of like be aware of what they were. No one told him I drove like an idiot. I'm sure, no, because I would drive on my own. So it was kind of like those experiences where I was like, what is happening? I'm in some parallel universe. And I completely, well, yeah, everything changed for my driving after that point. Yeah, being on a spiritual path, I would be remiss not to say at this moment that, you can actually still work with my spiritual teacher, John Roger, even though he is no longer in physical form. And you would do that by going to msia.org. It's interesting that there is such an incredible richness that comes with that. There was also a beautiful part of my journey, part of my evolution, when I had to really start to let go of this particular source. This thing out here has my answers. And I do believe that there is a beautiful perfection in that. There is a rite of passage in that. There is a beautiful season for that. And that's a wonderful experience. And at some point, I can only really claim my own experience, but that at some point we really believe that God is within, the Holy Spirit is within, our answers are within. We have a direct connection within. That's just the funnest part of the adventure ever. It's massively challenging, but really starting to have the balls to like trust our own unique ways. And it's so different for everyone, right? Some people hear, some people feel, some people, we all can become aware of that clean, clear direction in so many different ways. And so for me, it was quite hard because I was surrounded by a lot of men who actually didn't have the same ways of receiving the Holy Spirit that I do. And so it was kind of fucking confronting that it's like for me to all of a sudden start to go, oh, they're all doing this, but I'm coming into this place where I know. But it really kind of helped me springboard into trusting myself. Is so important.
This is how spirit works, I feel like. When you're completely are surrendered to it, what happens is even what you're talking about, even the story that you were drawn to sharing, I can completely relate with driving in my car and texting. And I'm thinking here while you're sharing that, like, that is exactly what I'm going through. Like, I drive and text and like post stuff, and this shame comes over me. And then I hear this like angel come, like, you're doing this again. Like, you're doing this again. And I have a very similar experience, and just you reflecting that, like tuning in, when we tune in to beyond the words and we allow fully, like we can't kind of control ourselves. Something else comes in and surrenders us into it, and then relating that to also manifesting. And I've had a lot of those seasons too, where everything just brought me into that greater surrender. It's like, okay, this horrible, horrible thing happened, brings me into surrender. This happened, brought me into surrender. And the deeper I surrender, the more my life would shift, or the karma around me would completely change. And it didn't feel like almost years and years. When the karma shifts, it feels like that. And it's like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm living in a different life. Oh, I look different. Like people would come up to me after this horrible thing that it felt horrible. Now I laugh at it more, but and they'd be like, you look different, like your facial structure is different, which I also want to touch on because doing this type of work is like it shifts how we look, our flesh looks. Like it's transformative in the moment. And I'm not saying, and I love that you shared about the spiritual, your spiritual teacher and your experience with that, because I can also fully relate with that and having that depth of tuning inward in a very unique way that brings forward such a depth of surrendering
Yeah.
and subjects here, but um, your dog, Phoenix.
Well, actually, they kind of segue perfectly on it.
Okay, good. Because I was like, all of a sudden, I was like, she has this crazy viral dog with millions of followers, and like, she's getting invited to like go on the Drew Barrymore show and like the Ellen show or whatever. And I'm like, she only wants to do my podcast. Like, I mean, come on. Like, it doesn't get better than that, you know? I feel very honored.
Right. Um, well, oh my Lord, so many things I could say. But truly starting to share Phoenix was just one of those clear callings that happen when we do surrender and fucking let go and go, okay, like truly I'm gonna stop like thinking about what I want in my life in terms of like, and I will just quickly say this because if I were to share like the biggest key for manifestation in my life, and this is all hopefully relevant to what to Phoenix and where I'm about to go, but the biggest key for me in manifestation has truly been having the courage to have nothing. So
Yeah.
so it's like if we're asking to receive God's, the Holy Spirit's most incredible gifts, like our spiritual gifts, the things that honestly will give us profound abundance in this world, if we're in a place of like we're only going to do that makes us money right now, like good luck. But if we're in a place where we're willing to surrender and truly do just really trust those little nudges, those instincts, those downloads, those things that come present, and we're willing to do them just because we're being asked to do them,
Yeah.
and we truly do let go. It's like if we can get to a place where it's like truly, if it's my highest good, if it's my path on this planet to go help the XYZ people in this area and never makes me a lot of money, well, that I surrendered, that like I'm okay, right? That's not something that's easy to do because we're in the mind right now. It's much more of a just an all consciousness kind of experience. But I will say that because I have had gotten to a place in my life and I keep coming to this place, I keep expanding into this place. There's always more. There's always a greater surrender of like, yeah, I'm willing to fucking let go of everything that I have, everything that I know, to truly receive what the present moment, to receive where my life is calling me, like what's my highest good. And so I was in this process, and sharing my dog online was one of those things. And my partner, my husband was like, that's ridiculous. I honestly also in my own ego felt like that's ridiculous, that's stupid. Like, but anyway, so I did my dog Phoenix. Many of you probably have seen him before. He has a neurological disorder called cerebellar hyperplasia. He has a mild version of it, but it was really tough when he was little. There was a lot of care that he needed, but right now we just call it the cuteness condition because he prances like a dressage horse and he's just the most adorable thing. So he has 2.2 million followers on TikTok and 350,000 on Instagram, and he literally has people that cry when we bump into a fan on the street, they're like, oh my God, is this Phoenix? He's like literally like an icon for people around the world. And
For me
so
too. Every time I see him, I'm like, do I ask them if I can take a selfie? Like, oh God, I even get that way around it.
it's so and he is a big spiritual vortex, trust me. There is something going on with this dog that's snoring beneath me, definitely. But anyway, I was really called to start to share him, and his second video went viral. And it's like, that's not really a spiritual thing, it's just pretty cute. Like, I matched his little prance to a popular song. And I will say, probably the biggest support to him getting massive quickly was, I don't know if you all remember the Happy Dog song, but it just happened that his prance was perfectly in beat with the Happy Dog TikTok massive song. So it just like, every video that I posted with this ridiculous little jingle just went viral. So then I had this cute little dog that did videos online, and then I kept getting all these just clear messages of kind of what to do with that. So still to this day, we email thousands of people in the morning with a free email that basically says some kind of intentional or spiritual or healing focus, where Phoenix gives a little pep talk and a pep walk. He shines the light on something like forgiveness or compassion or connection. And then I give a little bit of a guide, but, it's really turned into a profound opportunity for a service. Like, it's easy to take in guidance from an animal because they're so pure and innocent. And it's been wild to see how many people will truly like consider things if Phoenix tells them versus if any human is ever going to tell them, like, well, maybe you should forgive so and so. It's like that if Phoenix says it, it's like, okay, yeah, dogs forgive. Unfortunately, there are people out there kicking them every day and they forgive over and over and over. Maybe dogs have a line of, maybe they are holding a truth that it's time we paid a bit of attention to. And there is no coincidence that dog is God spelled backwards. And I still judge myself a little bit as I say this out loud, because this really is just kind of more pure downloads. I don't actually hear a lot of other people talking about this. But just as we have the angelic kingdom that are truly here to help us expand more fully into who we are as that pure, invisible energy, right? Our souls. I do believe that the animal kingdom is here to teach us how to more embody, get into our beautiful humanity and have love and compassion for that. Like, yes, we're here to be who we are as clear spiritual beings. But hey, in order to do that, we need to have more compassion and kindness and loving for our humanity. And nothing breaks us open into compassion, in my experience and in my observation, more than an animal. Like, I can't tell you how many experiences I've had of like humans that will not feel their feelings, that will never break down, right? Until a dog dies, right? And that, I can't believe I'm about to say this example, but I'll never forget watching Selling Sunset. Not that I've ever seen it. Clearly, I've seen the whole thing. Watching Selling Sunset. And, there's some.
But
You haven't?
I haven't seen it.
I'd love, if anyone listening has a good scientific, neuroscientific reason why we like watching things like Selling Sunset, please tell me, because it's just so fascinating to me. It's so entertaining. I love seeing the pretty houses. It's so ridiculous and so entertaining. But the point is that I don't find those people incredibly authentic and connected into their humanity. But the profound thing that happened was that, so two of the characters on the show, they lost their dogs, and they did this beautiful memorial for their dogs, and they even said it in their speeches, like they probably wouldn't have put the memorial on TV if they knew how hardcore they were going to break down. Like they couldn't even finish a sentence. They were bawling because of how much they loved this animal. And so I think that's what our relationship with animals can do. It's like they're so innocent, they're so defenseless, they're so helpless. And so, really, in so many ways, our animals can almost become a part of ourselves and a key into finding ourselves, our innocence, our beauty, our spiritual gifts. But the downside is when that they do not live forever. It's profoundly challenging, and in my experience, and this is why I'm writing a book about it, about pet grief, and about how it's just this profound fucking spiritual springboard into really clearing some of our biggest patterns, because we love them so much and it breaks our heart so much that it kind of gives us the courage to really feel and let go of some of our biggest childhood traumas.
I know that you had a dog recently that recently passed, and I know that that really inspired you. And I also wanted to share, just touching on something that you said about following spirit, like how I can relate with that is I I was just talking about this the other day. Like the alignment of people that talk about how all of a sudden I came into alignment and all these things came forward. I mean, they talk about it like it's very easy, but people that have that experience usually go through years and years and years of all of this trauma and clearing and healing. And I know for me that was true, like all of these experiences. And then it's then it kind of comes using that experience to learn how to listen to spirit and again move ourselves out of the way and be that full surrendered being. And when I started being in that, I can relate with your story of, oh, I want to post this little thing. I mean, I remember one night I was driving after all these years of just going through all of this stuff, and I wanted to create a heart-centered business, and I didn't know what that was going to look like, but I got this idea, and one night it was I heard this voice that was go down to the local bar in the town I live in Laguna Beach. And I was like, really, that can't be spirit telling me to go to the bar. I don't drink at this time. I don't drink a lot. I don't party a lot. It was go down to the bar. And I was like, no, I kind of went back and forth, but I found myself moving towards the bar as I'm having this conversation with this angel or whatever it was. And I get to the bar and I meet this person. I run into somebody and town people that I'd known from this job. And she recommends this other person, and I go talk to, and it was the first blow up of portraits that I had came from going and listening to that. But it wasn't even a list. It was even though I was arguing with it, I was surrendered. I was
Yes.
moving towards it. So I just wanted
Yeah.
to say that takes years of going through stuff. And then sometimes all of a sudden it just brings you into
Yeah.
some alignment.
Yeah. Yeah.
Not always the magic, the
No,
miracle, but
no.
sometimes it's it is a miracle for what's going on.
For anyone that's really kind of inspired by that and really wanting to do that more, and I think your story presents such a profound example of that, is that often the reason we don't follow those little go to the bar is right because our big mind will jump in and want to know, well, why, and that we want the 10 steps before we're willing to take the first step. But just following the one step, in my experience, it's often when we won't get around the corner to see what is step 2 until we take step 1. So in my experience, if we can just start to fucking just even the little things oh, I'm supposed I don't usually like egg sandwiches, but something's like, just fucking start to trust yourself in the littlest ways, in the one step ways, not in the build a business way, but in the little one steps. It's wild. You start to see, oh, I needed to get the egg sandwich. Oh, because then X, Y, all of these things. I've never like, so anyway, I just thought that was such a beautiful example of like, it's the littlest thing, but often our mind wants to sabotage because it needs the blueprint before we'll just take this first step. And in my experience, spirit doesn't work that way. It works so much more in a present moment, more through our body way. So we've got to let go of that control in our mind. It's a fun adventure, but it's not an easy one.
So
Yeah.
I felt like a lot of peace come in when you were talking about that.
Yeah. Well, the only other thing that comes present for me on that is we're just talking about, I guess spirituality in a very general sense is that um, I think there has been a lot of form that's created around it. And I think that form can be really beautiful, right? Like we do the yoga forms, or we wear a particular kind of clothing, or we speak a particular way. And that can be helpful for a time, maybe to help expand us in some way. But I do look forward to well, I'll just claim it for myself, to really live a spiritual, authentic, like truly surrendered life has no fucking form. And honestly, that's why I'll say fuck, to kind of just like communicate to people that there isn't a particular uh, there is spirit and love and truth, right? In There is no form to it. It's much more about this beautiful inner essence, this formlessness, this thing that, because we kind of think like, oh no, exactly. Like the spirit wouldn't be telling me to go to the bar. Like that's not a spiritual form. It's like yoga studio, sure. Dog park, okay, right? But it's like we really need to get ourselves out of these. This is what being spiritual looks like. This is the form of it, and just really start to open more fully into our authentic, surrendered selves. I'm not sure why I feel the need to put the light on that, but I really see it
Yeah.
holding a lot of people back, that I can't do this or I can't be that, or I'm trying to be spiritual. I'm trying to wear and say and it's like fuck all that. It's going to hold you back so much.
Yeah, and that's what I think when I was talking about kind of the superficial spirituality and just all that's out there with the like, it's almost like Instagram's like some of the people that it's like half like like they're all showing that like in like like really skimpy bikinis. Like it's like and also advertising their spirituality. My point is like in other cultures like I don't know, India or something like that, like spirituality is just it's obviously not about that. You don't see like older Indian guru men like running around in their like G-string, like taking selfies and like advertising so much. And that can get so confusing and conflicting, especially for me. And I think like a lot that's been coming forward for me recently is like, look, how do I like, how do I shift my looks? I never feel like I look spiritual. And I feel like my work kind of is in this its own dimension and getting that look and sharing myself more. And the only way that I've been able to get into and sharing my face and like what is my makeup style and what is, how do I how can I allow myself to feel more comfortable with this? And the only way that I've been able to do that is through what is in the way of that. And letting go of what you were saying, that control into that like surrendered spirit state. The only way that I can get to that is working my own pattern. What's in the way of that? And a lot of it those two things were very connected for me. A lot of those things were like my mother, healing with the control of my mother and that depth of healing has and what about her mother? okay, healing that too. Like she had a really painful relationship with her mother. So I've been like, so I started tuning into that. You're saying like tuning into those like specific things within us too, I think is like trusting the inner direction of the healing. And
Yeah.
what happened was, as I started to look at this, why am I so afraid of sharing myself? I had this, and I started working with the pattern in my own way. I had this profound dream about my grandmother. Like the other night, I was doing like a 30-day, like healing this pattern. And like I've never dreamt about her before. My mother had a painful relationship with her that she never healed her own pain from and fully. And and I told my mother about this dream, which was related to her face and her scowling. And I told my mother about this dream randomly. I was like, I had this dream about grandma. I never dreamt about her. And she was like, she never liked to be photographed. And I was like, that is so in alignment with what I am clearing about this. And so it's also following that inner direction about looks and that superficial thing around how we have to look,
Yeah.
which is also there has to be a balance with how do we want to look? What is our expression? What is true for us? And I have revamped like my look. Like, what do I want to put out? Like, what's fun for me? But that's been a really big process for me lately. So maybe you're tuning into that, and I'm sure for a lot of people. But
Yeah.
I do want to talk about your book too. That
So I was sent this dog, Ellie. She's a Queenslander. That's the kind of dog that she is, and I'm a Queenslander. That's the state that I'm from in Australia. Um, and so I was asked to go and meet this dog purely just to put a video of her on Phoenix's social platforms to try and find an adopter for her. And as soon as I got there, um, I just knew she was coming home with me. And, it didn't make sense on any level to bring home such a severely disabled dog. I just didn't have the time, just didn't make sense. But it was very similar to the same feeling that I had when we adopted Phoenix. It's just like, this is happening. You can fight it if you want, but like this dog's coming home with you. So I'm like, okay, I'm surrendering to that. We humanely euthanized her 2 months after she came home with us. She had a degenerative brain disease, which meant that she just started the pain and the anxiety, the fear that she was in was just horrific, and she was getting worse. She couldn't get up, she couldn't stand, she couldn't walk, she couldn't do anything for herself. So, but it was really when we got the MRI results back that she was in so much pain that we decided to let her go. The experience of building a relationship with her inside of myself, I just can't even put words on it. It has just been so rich and so real, So my mum passed when I was 14. I completely disconnected from her because it was so painful. And so a lot of my healing was about letting her back in, feeling her, communicating to her, having her as this very rich and real relationship in my life, which she is. So I have such this wonderful experience with, our past loved ones as being such a beautiful, as a real relationship in our life. So for this little dog that I only knew for 2 months to kind of be such a new, up-leveled, profound experience of that, I was not ready for it whatsoever. But the connection, the relationship I have with this dog, this my rainbow daughter that I call her now, and she was the one, and it sounds so cheesy to say out loud, but she was the one that it's like, you're going to write this book. My connection with her really has just given me permission to be just bold in a new way. And so yes, I'm writing a book about how to grieve and feel, but not just grieve to get through the pain, but truly let the pain fucking break our hearts open into new levels of spiritual awareness, and really put in the love and the time to reconnect with that loved one because they're just as alive as they were. They're in a position now to help us in a really profound way. I have this guardian angel, this arc animal that's really supporting me in ways that's just kind of profound. So I'm still writing the book. I feel like it's going to take forever. So I'm no longer on track to publish at the end of February, but hopefully by March. It's called The Blue Healer. But obviously, so she is the kind of cattle dog that she was is also called a blue healer. Like, so the blue healer from grief to greatness.
As you were talking, I was really getting an image of this really big angel coming in and coming into this spot of just heat and fire. And I know that that's the word that comes forward, heat and fire, and whatever that level of torture maybe the whole planet is working out right now, that is bringing forward so much grief, and whatever we each are a part of that in healing ourselves. So it's so beautiful about this connected, spiritual, conscious, expansive work.
Yeah.
So thank you for bringing in that gorgeous energy. I really saw a powerful angel just coming into that heat, whatever it is in my consciousness that I'm working with, and the rest of the world.
Yeah. So if you're on that self-healing journey, that 4-step guide is on all my link in bio and websites. I think it's pretty easy to find if on my Instagram and website. Hopefully, it's been a while since I've looked at all those things. And I do one-on-one work. So if anyone feels called,
thank you so much for listening to God's Favorite, where I have healed an even deeper level of my experience or jealousy or comparison of myself to others, and come into an even greater acceptance through hearing Zoe's story here. Love and light to everyone.
I love you all.